Hey everyone, I've got some timber framing projects coming up, so today I'm going to make a slick and a chisel. Most of you are probably familiar with a chisel. You can hit it with a hammer or you can work it with your hands, and it's basically for cutting and shaving down wood. And a slick is really similar, but they generally only come in bigger sizes. They've got a longer handle, and you don't hit it from the back, you'll handle it with both hands, and they're used for paring down faces of wood, say the face of a mortise or tenon. So they're generally pretty big so that you can get a nice stable surface, and you're just trying to get that plane really nice and smooth and dial it in. So let's get going, and please remember, likes and subscribes really help the channel grow. I'd love to hear your comments, questions, suggestions down below, and if you want to help us directly to keep the content coming, you can do that over on Patreon. I'll be making them out of this old leaf spring, which is generally pretty good steel for chisels. It's nice and shock resistant, and it can hold an edge pretty well. So I'll start by cutting out a section, get it nice and hot in the forge, and then draw it out to a nice uniform 2 inches by 1/2 inch or 50 by 12. Now I'll start forging out the tangs. Now I'll forge the second tang on the other side while it's still one piece. Now I'm going to mark where I want to cut it in half, get it hot again, and then cut it. First I'll establish the cut line, then I'll give it some more heat so I can cut all the way through it. Now I'll give them another heat so I can draw out the blades a little bit and finish up the forging. I'll do most of the drawing out on my homemade power hammer. And the last step now is to normalize the steel. So I'm going to bring it up to a forging temperature and then stick it in some sand and let it cool down really slowly. This will help relax the steel and relieve any internal stresses that built up during the forging process. After they've cooled off, I'll take them into the grinding room and give them their final shape. Here I'll just generally tidy them up and knock down any edges, things like that, but I'll pay particular attention to getting the back perfectly flat and getting the primary bevel established and really consistent. They're ground into their final shape, so the next thing to do is to quench them, and this is to make them really hard. You can use a magnet to test a steel. Once it's hot enough, the magnet will no longer react to it. It works right there, still working, right there. It stops working. So at that color, the steel's hot enough that you can quench it. And up here, it's not gonna work at all. I'll be using vegetable oil to quench, which is really good for spring steel, and I'll quench it right to the point when the flames disappear. At this point, the steel's not fully hardened yet. It's probably got about 15 to 20 seconds left. So I'm gonna clamp it in against a really flat piece of steel, and this makes sure it stays nice and straight throughout the whole process. Now while they're still hot, I'm going to go throw them in an oven to temper them, which will reduce the brittleness that quenching gives it and increase the toughness. Now I'll polish them up. And now off to the wood shop to put handles on them. I've cut out some handle blanks First I'll drill the hole for the tang, then I'll turn them down on the lathe. I'll cut some ferrules for the handles out of copper pipe. I'll toast the handles a little bit with a torch to give them some color. And then they get a coat of oil. Now I'll blacken the ferrules. Now I'll put them all together. All right, now to give them a final sharpen. I want to plug this sharpening system really quick and I'll link it below. This is the best sharpening system I've ever used. You can get a perfect edge and strop in seconds with no setup. Now it's time to take them for a test drive. This just shows paring down a face with the slick. And here I'm cutting a mortise with the chisel. And with the size and heft of this chisel, I can use it just like a mortising chisel, so I can cut really clean, straight walls, and I'll be able to cut the mortises through the 6x8 beams I've got, no problem. All right, I really like these. I think they turned out really well. They're nice and sturdy and hefty. I think they look great and they're super sharp and they're keeping their edge really well. So I'll be back pretty soon when I start actually making the A-frame trusses, and I'll put them through their paces so you can see how they hold up. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.